At the Self-Help Graphics Day of the Dead celebration, artist vendors set up canopies that house their temporary stores filled with original handmade t-shirts, wallets, body products, magnets, candles, jewelry, mirrors, and more. Hours later, the event is officially underway after a blessing performed by Aztec dancers follows a procession of people dressed in calavera face. Once the audience's gaze is released by the dancers, the festivities begin. Traffic begins to flow in and out of the gallery, against the stage where the bands play, up and down the stairs to a room of altars on display, and for the vendors, a night of intense, fast-paced business transactions begin. For some, their booths fill to the rim for hours, and money and goods exchange hands frantically as people elbow into the 10x10 canopies to look at merchandise of themes related to Day of the Dead, Frida Kahlo, Che Guevara, Zapatistas, hip-hop culture, Aztec and Mayan imagery, and much, much more. The interactions go into the night as people linger to socialize and continue to shop. Vendors wrap up as late as 1 in the morning. It is one of the most important events of the year for the livelihood of many artists here. Jewelry designer Lisa Rocha reflects on 2004 and other years during this period as the heyday of self-help. She recalls traveling to New York City for a weekend to sell at a major trade show and returning to East LA the following weekend only to earn 5 times more income in the 7 hours of business she conducted as a vendor. Apart from economic support, it is an event Rocha enjoys and looks forward to every year. Although booth fees to participate have nearly doubled, and business has dramatically dropped since this time, she says she will continue to participate because it is a community and cultural space she enjoys supporting and feeling a sense of belonging to. East Los Angeles has historically been recognized as a center for political and cultural activity with roots in the Chicano civil rights movement. Since 1970, Self-Help Graphics opened its doors to many artists who later entered the art market and formed a canon of Chicano visual artists that today continue to exhibit at major museums. While famous for its printmaking studio and gallery, this space has long been home to events where generations of artists working in music, performance, muralism, metalwork, and graffiti showcase their work, hone their craft, and cultivate audiences. Annual events, Day of the Dead, their holiday sale, Botanica de Amor, Mexica New Year, and others involve the participation of local crafters who provide a mercado or marketplace backdrop where our audiences can access cultural goods unique to their community. I became interested in the production by these artists as a participant in these events since 2001, because I'm a crafter myself. Since then, I have seen my peers cultivate their businesses into established design lines while growing artistically and creatively within a socially and politically conscious community of patrons. Usually regarded as vendors rather than artists, they are another significant and influential artistic flourishing that can be traced to LA East Side culture and identity. Little to no research or art historical attention exists on these artists, yet they are widely known to and patronized by a similar audience that attends museum exhibitions of self-help that self-help graphics catapulted into legitimacy. My project with this group as a selected artist in residence at the 18th Street Art Center in Santa Monica, California, is part of a series entitled Status Report, the Creative Economy, which includes projects focusing on how artists are negotiating the current economic crisis. Mine is a process-based work in the tone and method of feminist artist Suzanne Lacey's performance works with women. Discussions with artists related to the role that institutions play in their growth and sustainability will help document their history and foster a vision for a future for continued work with this and other institutions. I should mention that I worked on this project with Suzanne Lacey and organized the community of crafters that I'm presenting here, and so they were part of this project that was presented at MoCA. The program includes the program that I'll be presenting at 18th Street Art Center. It includes an exhibition to highlight artists' works, and a mercado will take place to emphasize that it is not necessarily paradoxical for these works to exist simultaneously as art and commodity. The majority of these artists are women, and many are mothers whose children have grown up attending community events and markets. This paper marks the initial stages of my research and focuses on the work and contribution of 3 artists, Araceli Silva, Felicia Montes, and Lisa Rocha, who I'll talk about in a second. However, there exists a much broader core group of vendor artists that have developed and innovated their products and works over time. I locate this community in the same socio-historical context discussed by Victor Hugo Viesca in his article, The Battle of Los Angeles, the Cultural Politics of Chicano, Viesca considers, Viesca talks about these bands in his article. Viesca considers the music groups tied to East Los Angeles identities, such as Ozomatli, Quetzal, Quinto Sol, and others followed predominantly by Latino audiences. These bands are not only connected spatially through the neighborhoods from which they emerge and venues where they perform, they are bound by a politics of identity and resistance responding to emerging conditions affecting ethnic working class populations in Los Angeles. Viesca cites the rise of the scene as coinciding with the shift to a post-industrial economy in Los Angeles that limited opportunities for youth in East Side and South Side neighborhoods. I would add that Chicanos entering community colleges and universities also politicized many of the producers and organizers of the East Side scene. Discriminatory immigration propositions on the ballots during the 90s, as well as the Zapatista rebellion in Chiapas, presented opportunities for intervention and respond by bands, artists, activists, audiences, thus cultivating a vibrant cultural situation that, quote, serves as a floating scene for resistance, a mechanism for calling an oppositional community into being through performance. Bands were not the only performers, as audiences staged their political and cultural identities, not necessarily always ethnic, by fashioning themselves with t-shirts, jewelry, purses, tattoos, and other accessories designed by vendors who were part of the backdrop for many of the events featuring these bands. In the context of Los Angeles' globalized landscape, this community of Latino artists outfitted a local community crafting goods that circulated in dance clubs, street festivals, community farms, art openings, and people's homes. This network of artists and vendors generated a new economy conscious of identity, community, sustainability, and global and local politics. In the same way that East Side bands incorporate and hybridize traditions and influences, such as son jarocho, banda, reggae, and hip-hop, these vendor artists work with materials, themes, and elements that connect to their cultural lineages and urban environments. Lisa Rocha is a silversmith whose jewelry incorporates the Mexican Day of the Dead tradition through her use of calaveras or skulls, papel picado, which are cut paper flags that are used on altars, and cempasúchil flowers traditional to the holiday. She uses Catholic elements like the Rosary, Sacred Hearts, and the Virgen de Guadalupe in her pieces, as well as Native American and Aztec imagery. Vendors create products, design lines, and even stores named in the Nahuatl language, reflecting the Chicano tradition of indigenismo, in which the ancient Mesoamerican past is referenced through iconography. Jewelry, fashions, and imagery often connect with indigenous elements and spirituality. Araceli Silva's hammered silver works, Deer, Diosa, Orbits, Womb and Remix, and Luna Soul are responding to dreams, spirituality, urban culture, and the cosmos. She believes in the power of stones, particularly those she identifies as connected to her ancestral lineage, like jade and turquoise. While these artists offer support to one another, they are mainly connected through the events where they vend. Self-help graphics has been an important institution in all of their careers by offering a space where they showcase their work. Rocha was one of the first Getty interns at Self-Help Graphics, along with Felicia Montes, who continued to work as an event organizer and met this community of vendor artists there. She had the vision to create a website, Urban Chic Mercado, featuring design lines by vendor artists which she promotes locally, but also but also at out-of-state academic conferences. Montes creates her own line of apparel, Fe, that uses faux embroidery designs reminiscent of textiles from southern Mexico states of Chiapas, as well as Guatemala. I asked Montes to reflect on the aesthetics used by the artists featured in Urban Chic Mercado, and she uses the words reinvention, syncretism, and urban, but most importantly, she says their ties to a cultural and political identity is what unites them. Silva comments on the aesthetics as honoring tradition, history, and ancestry. These elements continue to call people to the mercados where these artists participate. While the economy has dramatically shifted, causing many stores and vendors many stores and venues where vendors sold to close their doors, artists continue to create and subsist through the community into which they have long been life to. Currently, these artists rely on stores such as Yamish Books, Olveritas Village, Casita del Pueblo, and events like Anti-Mall, the Caracol Marketplace, and Proyecto Jardín, to name a few. I find it necessary to build a discourse around these artists and their work, particularly during these economic shifts. Self-help graphics is a part of this changing landscape and has undergone many changes over the past 4 years, including losing over half of their building to new rent restrictions imposed by a new property owner, and introducing a new administration that has dramatically changed policies for vendors. In their interview, Rocha, Silva, and Montes acknowledged that self-help graphics has played a vital role in their artistic careers, whether by providing a venue for events or directly offering support to their work by selling them in the now defunct Tienda Colores that was housed next to the gallery. Yet, as Rocha notes, we are the vendors with a lowercase v as opposed to the artist with a capital A. Even Self-Help Graphics, an organization known for resisting art world hierarchies by writing Chicanos into art history, has yet to recognize this community of artists beyond their roles as vendors. Understanding their significant artistic contributions can be helpful for Self-Help Graphics and others to continue in the legacy of support that they have offered to artists of all media beyond printmaking. Reciprocally, artist vendors should be viewed as a powerful resource in bridging audience support to events, and nurturing a political and cultural identity that keeps the community engaged in the East Side arts culture and art scene.